Hello and welcome to day 22. After yesterday talking about my strengths and weaknesses, today we're going to cover self-improvement and the things I am doing and have done in the past to make myself a better writer. Let's go. One of the first things that I learnt when I was first writing was that I needed to know more about the structure of my story. It's integral to know where you're going and to be able to have a plan. There are many different versions of story structure. They all take very, very similar elements, but they're explained in a slightly different way. YouTube has a wealth of knowledge and experienced people who know what they're talking about. Whilst there are a lot of people who don't, advice in writing is very much a case of taking everything with a pinch of salt. As a writer, I use YouTube a lot to improve my writing by watching people's videos who are more experienced than I am. I watch a few YouTubers who are already published traditionally and self-published. It's nice to see people who have already done the things that I'm looking in the future at doing and hearing their advice on the subject. I've mentioned her before, but I think it's worth mentioning her again. Alexa Donne is a published YA author who gives advice on writing and getting published. iWriterly is run by Meg Latour. She used to work for a literary agency and now self-publishes her fantasy books with a cyberpunk theme. She has many how-to videos and a lot of insight into writing. Natalia Leigh is an editor and writer of books. Her most recent book is self-published. She has a lot of insight into the industry and her videos are definitely worth checking out. Some YouTubers have some very interesting opinions, and a couple of YouTubers that I particularly enjoy listening to their opinions and takes on things are Cam from Page Nomad. Has to be one of the sweetest guys on AuthorTube. He always gives his opinion in an informed and non-tea spilling way. He often has opinions that are thought-provoking and make you think about your writing process. Partridge focuses on storytelling. As well as writing books, he's heavily into RPG and D&D, which is what interests me about him. He often gives opinions which are very thought-provoking and relevant to storytelling in general. If you want something that feels more like a classroom experience, you can't go wrong with these guys. Sanderson is a fantasy author and a legend. Not only has he written many books, he also has his lecture series up on YouTube. Whether you're into fantasy or writing something else, they're definitely worth checking out. Erin Brock comes from a slightly different place as an editor, so her writing advice videos are well worth a watch. Knowing what editors are looking out for is definitely something as writers we need to know. Reading is an important part of learning about stories. If you want a head start, it's well worth looking up some reviewers of books on YouTube and learning a bit more about their opinions and their views. As an extensive reader of fantasy, the legend Greene is well worth looking up as a writer. His opinions on plots he'd like to see more of, things he'd like to see less of, are definitely worth checking out as an aspiring writer. Merphy Naiper is another fantasy book reviewer. She has a series called Dear Authors where she discusses things she would like to see more and less in books. It's definitely worth checking out. Overall, YouTube makes me feel like part of a community where I can gain advice and knowledge that I wouldn't otherwise have had. To be a good writer, you need to read. And you also need to read in lots of different genres. So I tried to read in a broad area of genres. I also read fiction and non-fiction books. One of the things I've been doing since I started writing is listening to audiobooks of the classics because I often find them more difficult to read. I like to include writing that's not very good in my reading because it makes me feel slightly better about my writing. I have a notebook where if there's particular prose that I like or an idea that I have come across whilst reading, I tend to write those things down so I can look them up later. I will be doing a little video on some of the books which have influenced me during writing my current novel series, Aloris, later in the week. As you may have noticed from my other videos, I really do love Writers HQ. They're pretty amazing. For a very small amount of money every month, you can have access to their course library. I believe the subscription is something like £10 or £20 a month. For that money, you get access to all of their courses, which you can do at your own pace. If you don't want to pay, you can still go on their Facebook page and you can still sign up for their online writers retreats and you can still chat to other writers on the forum. Of course, there are other places you can do courses like Skillshare or Masterclass and many others. Choose the courses that speak to you. But if you've got a few pennies to spare, I definitely recommend giving it a go. Moving forward, I would like to improve on my ability to edit. Now that I'm almost at the end of my third zero draft of my third novel, it's time to start editing. So it's going to be a whole new learning curve for me. At the same time, I would like to start beta reading because I want to learn how to become more critical, not only of other people's work, but of my own. And also to learn the kind of questions that I will need to ask my beta readers when I come to the stage where I'm betaing my manuscripts. And one last thing I'd like to get better at, I'd like to be able to describe things better. But everything is a work in progress, so I'm sure as time goes by, I will learn more. Hello and welcome to day 21. I haven't written yet today. It's about 3:30. Going to sit down. I'm hopefully going to do 2 Pomodoros and because I'm aiming for about 800-ish words today to make up the difference between the extra words I did today and the words I'm not going to get in today because I'm filming and editing and planning and filming and editing. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I've got my snacks, some nuts today, and I've got my fizzy water. I'll see you in a bit. I wrote for 2 Pomodoros today and I got 1,217 words, which keeps me on track. I didn't quite get to 40k today, but I will do tomorrow. What do you do to keep improving your writing? What YouTube channels do you follow? Are there any interesting websites I should know about? Let me know. Tomorrow I'll be talking about people who inspire me. Thank you for watching the video today, and until tomorrow, just keep writing.